Hey everybody, so this video talks about the present perfect, and we're going to talk about this grammar in the context of your work experience. This is a funny story, I think, that shows a lot of examples of this grammar. My friend was a student, and he needed a job, but he couldn't find one, so he was getting worried. He told people he had a landscaping business called Mike's Landscaping, and one day someone asked him, "Have you ever aerated a lawn?" They asked him this question, "Have you ever aerated a lawn?" And Mike didn't know what that was. However, Mike needed the money. "Sure," he lied, "I have." So he answered this question by saying, "I have." "Do you have an aerator?" "No," he answered, "but I've used one." He lied again. So he said, "I've used one. And okay, come to my house at 3 p.m. on Friday. I need you to aerate my lawn." And Mike went to Home Depot and rented an aerator for the day. It cost him $100. He read the manual, then he went to the man's house and did his job, and the man paid him $250. That's how Mike started his landscaping business. He's been a landscaper now for 10 years. I can say he's been, in this case, this little apostrophe S means has, it's not is. He has been a landscaper for 10 years now. So that's a funny little story. And as we talk about this grammar, I might bring some examples from that story. So we use have plus the past participle to talk about things that happened in the past when the specific time is not given. So the simple past, which you probably learned in ELW 903 or 904, is something that happened at a specific time. So maybe you've seen these kind of timelines before with present, past, and future, but this little X represents the action. The action happened at one time in the past. For example, I washed the dishes last night. So last night is the time when that action happened. On the other hand, present perfect, it has this meaning sort of more general in the past. So when an action happens at some time in the past, but like we don't know when, or it doesn't matter when, I can say I have washed dishes, but I have not worked as a cook. So these sentences are different because they're talking about my whole life. I have washed dishes, but I have not worked as a cook. Okay, so just to bring another example, I can say I finished my project yesterday. That's a simple past. So yesterday is the time when finished happened. On the other hand, I have finished 3 projects in this class so far. So that means in the past, finished happened 3 times, but I'm not telling you exactly when. Okay, maybe last week I prepared my big job application and turned it in. So the first X is the time that I prepared it. The second X is the time that I turned it in. And all of this is sort of marked in the sentences last week. On the other hand, I can say I have turned in my job application, and now I am waiting to get a call. So in this example, it doesn't say when that happened. We just know it's in the past. These are a couple of examples that can help. Pause the video and write down for each blank either worked or have worked. So for example, number 1, this sentence says, I, as a hairstylist in the past. This is sort of a general. It doesn't say exactly when in the past, so it should be I have worked. For number 2, it says last December, I, as a hairstylist, to earn a little extra money, because it says last December, we have to use the simple past. I worked as a hairstylist, because that's a specific time. So right now, pause the video and write the answers to the next 3 questions here. Okay, did you get, I have worked as a hairstylist and as a secretary? I have worked as a hairstylist, but now I want a different job? And I have worked as a hairstylist and I can paint nails professionally too. Here's one more practice. Go ahead and pause the video to finish these sentences. Ready to check? Number 1, I have worked as a salesman in the past. Number 2, when I lived in my country, I worked as a car salesman for Toyota. So in this case, when I lived in my country, that's specific enough to put this in the simple past. In my life, I have worked in car sales and real estate, because this is sort of a general time. Number 4, I have worked in other jobs too, but I prefer working in sales. And number 5, I worked for 10 hours yesterday. It was a very busy day. All right, so let's move on and learn a little bit more here about the present perfect. When we use the word have plus a past participle verb, we call this the present perfect. For example, I have washed the dishes, I have worked as a cook, or I have been a server. So that verb tense, that combination, when I put them together, I just call them the present perfect. And the helping verb have is in the present tense. If we are talking about one person, then there's an exception for he and she, right? We use the word has. For example, Jose has managed a restaurant. He has created weekly schedules for the workers. He has taken care of the budget too. So just to give this a little practice, I have 3 examples here, and I want you to write sentences about the experience of these people. Pause the video, take some time to write 3 sentences. Ready to check? Number 1, Pablo has worked as a security guard. Number 2, Mariam has worked as a college professor. Number 3, this has 2 people in the subject, so the grammar is going to be different. Weiss and Reza have worked as mechanics. Okay, so for regular verbs, the past participle, it's the same as the past tense form. So when teachers will often put these verb forms in a table with 3 columns. The first column has the base form, the second has the past tense, and the third has the past participle. Sometimes we call this the first form, second form, and third form. Anyway, you can see with these examples that the second column and the third column are exactly the same, like work, worked, worked, help, helped, helped, learn, learned, learned, study, studied, studied. With that verb that ends in Y, it had to change to the letter I, but it's basically the same thing. And then use, used, and used. So most of the time, 99% of the time, if this has ed on the end of the past tense, it will also have ed for the past participle. That makes your life easy. For example, last year I learned to use Microsoft Access, and I have learned many computer programs in the past. I worked as a teacher from 2005 to 2013, and I have worked as a school principal too. I helped my coworker with the paperwork last week, and I have helped 2 other people with their papers too. So the difference between just the specific sentence and the more general sentence is that this one has the verb have and this one does not. That's kind of an easy way to remember the meaning. For some verbs, there is an irregular form, a third form for the past participle. For example, be in the past tense is was or were, and then the past participle is been. Get turns to got in the past, but the past participle is gotten. Take, second form took, third form taken. Drive has a second form drove, and the past participle driven. So some verbs really have 3 different forms here, and then the sentences look a little different. So in my country, I was a farmer, and I have been a farmer worker in the US too. I got my certificate from ELW 906 in April of 2016. I have gotten a first aid certificate too. And for example, I took classes in accounting when I was younger, and since then I have taken some classes in management. So when the verb is irregular, look for the helping verb have plus the third form of the verb. So just to review, here's what we learned in this lesson. There are 2 ways to talk about the past in English: simple past and present perfect. The simple past refers to an action at a specific time in the past, or kind of inside a specific story in the past. It uses the past tense form of the verb. And the present perfect refers to an action in the past in a general way, and not at any specific time. And it uses have plus the past participle. When the verb is regular, the difference between simple past and present perfect is simply the helping verb. So last week I walked to the store, for example, and in my life I have walked to the store many times. So this is a specific sentence. This is a little bit more general sentence, but they're both talking about the past. So that's the end of this presentation. I hope that's a little bit helpful, and we will study more about this next week. See you then.